Next up, we're going to jump ahead to page 337, and we're going to talk about saving images for web or optimizing images for web use. So there are a variety of web file formats. Basically, there's GIFs or GIFs, depending on who you ask, how you pronounce that, GIF. There's PNGs, PNG 8 and PNG 24, and there are JPEGs. There are also scalable vector graphics that we learned about in Illustrator, which is vector format. But for Photoshop, these are our main options. So when you're going to use these, GIFs and PNG 8s are best for line art. So they basically are the best for flat color line art, like a logo or type. They support single level transparency. So that way we can put this artwork, like a logo, on a web page that already has a colored background, and it won't put a white box around it. It'll actually be transparent and show through to the color of the background of the website. JPEGs are best for photographs. They're continuous tone images. They do have a little bit of compression applied to them that takes some of the data away, so they're best for smaller files. They make the files a little bit smaller. And then PNG 24s are kind of cool. They kind of are the best of both worlds. They use lossless compression, so there's no loss in image quality, but that also means that they're bigger. They can be bigger files than they need to be. And they do allow for transparency. So if you wanted to add a drop shadow to your artwork and place it on top of a colored background on your website, the PNG 24 is the only format at the time that would do that. So that's pretty cool. So let's start with some line art and see how we can optimize that. So I'm going to do an open, and we actually have an Illustrator file that we want to open. So .ai is Illustrator. And when we open that in Photoshop, it's going to have to turn it into raster art. So we're going to say open, and we're going to get a dialog box. And when we do, we're going to tell it what size we want it to be, if it ever opens. There we go. So because this is Illustrator, it can be anything that we want it to be at this point. So we're going to come down here and we're going to change it into pixels, because that's how we measure web work. Remember, 72 pixels per inch. So we're going to specifically tell this to be 400 by 400. And because it was a square to start with, and the lock is on right here, it automatically made our height be the same size here. Then, because we're taking this Illustrator file and using it on the web and it's going to be pixels, we don't need it to be high res. We need it to be what web resolution is 72. And for some reason that changed, so I'm just going back and tweaking that. So 400 by 400 at 72 pixels per inch. And then in our mode, we want it to be RGB color, because that's what screens produce. And the bit depth is 8. And from here, we're going to convert whatever we had from Illustrator into this exact size raster artwork. So when we say OK, it's going to open for us exactly 400 by 400 pixels. So if I change that to pixels, I'm just going to show you that that's what it did. The image is 400 by 400 at 72. All right. So the file opens in Photoshop on a layer with transparency. So I'm going to just switch over to the layers here, and we can see that we have the transparency is the checkerboard behind. So because this is line art, the best options for this are either GIF or a PNG 8. Both are going to give us a small file size and support this transparency. So in the book it says file save for web, but that's actually this book is a little bit older, so we need to go file export. Okay, so in here we have some options. We have export as a PNG, as a quick export. export as, our preferences, save for web, legacy. Whenever you see that legacy, that means that's the old version that it used to look like. And I'm just going to take you to this because it's going to mimic our book, and I'll come back and show you. So in this, I'm going to make this bigger. This is showing us, if you go up to these tabs, here's the original, here's the optimized, but let's show two up so that we can see the original on the left at 625K in size. And then over here on the right, we see a GIF that is now only 15K. And the load speeds. So depending on what kind of, you guys will probably laugh, but a 56K modem is super slow compared to what you guys know, but that was kind of the standard. So if you have cable download, this is going to be a 1 second download. And you can change how fast your download speeds are here. Cable DSL, an old school modem, or some fast cable here. So 56K is slow, but you might have some people still in rural areas that are still relying on modems. So you kind of need to know who your end user is. If they're all, if they could be anywhere geographically, maybe think to yourself, okay, I need to keep this at like a low, like a DSL speed, something through the phone lines, and set that up and say, okay, 2 seconds is good. I can handle that. So is this the best that we want, or can we even do something better? If we come over here and we're working with a GIF first, we can look at some of these options. We're going to leave selective, but over here we're using 256 colors, all these different shades of reds and blacks. Now in my mind, this image is 3 colors. It's black, it's red, and it's white. There's some white in here. This is not see-through, it's actually white. So I can say, let's try half that many colors. And now we're going to see, is it getting any smaller, and is our speed any faster? Well, I still don't need that many. How about 32 colors? And here's our color chips that are being used. Now we're down to 11K. Can we go all the way down to 2 colors? Nope, we can't. That's too far. How about 4? Still not, look at all the little dots in here. That's still not great. How about 8 colors? It's looking okay. It's not super, especially when we look at the original over here. And remember, we got it down to, what was it, 12K, I believe? Let me go back up to the highest amount of numbers, 15. So using all 256 colors, it's at 15K and it's going to take 2 seconds. So is it really worth having a crummy image like this to have it just a little bit faster? It's still taking 2 seconds. It's now 8K. So you have to balance your speed with what it looks, the best look for you. 16 colors looks fine to me. I'm okay with that. All right, from in here, there's some other options that you can do. We want to make sure that transparency is checked so that we do have this transparent background here. And then if we were happy with this, we would say save. But let's, while we're here, look at some other options. For line art, the other option that we mentioned is a ping 8. So I'm going to switch to that. And a ping 8 has the, let's see, should have about the same amount of colors. Let's see. So a ping 8 at 8 colors is a little bit smaller. It's 7K. I'm not sure if I'm happy with how that looks here though in the strings. So just keep tweaking on this. So you can pick whichever format works best for you or looks best. If that's what you wanted, you can say save. And you're going to get a save optimized as, and then I always like to do something different with the file name so I know. It's going to end in something different like PNG, but what if it was a JPEG and I output it to a JPEG? For me to know that it's optimized and ready for web use, I might do something like OPT optimized, and then maybe even 400, because I know that this is the one that's 400 by 400 pixels. So this part is up to you, but I think doing something like optimized, OPT, or web in the name is going to help you at a quick glance know that, okay, this is the one that I need to use in my website, not the one I need to use in print. So giving it a slightly different name is important. And now you have an optimized version. That was line art. Let's take a quick look at a photograph. So do a file, open, and let's navigate to Fiery Erase. Also in chapter 13. And we are going to do the same thing. We're going to optimize this. So let's do a my goodness gracious, I'm drawing a complete blank here. We'll do a file, and then it used to be Save for Web, but like I said, it's now under Export. And Save for Web is the legacy. Let's just pop into this real quickly one more time, show the old version so that we get the two side by side. All right, this is a great example of, we're showing two up. So here's the original 1.5 megabyte JPEG, and on the right we see a ping. Remember, ping 8s and GIFs are good for line art. They are not good for photographs. So let's change this to a JPEG, much better. And the area that I want you to kind of watch, because all the people in the stands here are kind of blurry due to the motion, kind of keep an eye on the flames and the fire down here and how they look crisp and clear. And then watch over here and see how much it's changing. So we're going to change it to a JPEG. Here's where we have our chance to change it to a different size. So if we wanted it to be a certain width by height, we could change it here. If we wanted to change it by a percentage, we could change it. And in here, we have our options of JPEG high, low, and medium. So let's start at the low. And now it popped, oh, it made this one be my example. Undo that, undo. Let's go back to the original, sorry about that, and then do 2 up. I want to make sure I have my blue box around this right side, so I'm changing this one, not the one on the left. So our original is 1.5 megs, and over here, here's our JPEG low, and see it's down to 47K, not 1.5 megabytes. But let's look and we see some kind of pixelation. It's not real clear in here. So a JPEG medium brings us up to 76K, but it's looking much better in this area. And high, 152K, nowhere near 1.5 megabytes yet, by the way. And we have all the way very high and maximum. But notice we're just getting bigger and bigger, and our download time here is taking longer and longer. So at some point you have to find the balance. I'm thinking high or even medium looks pretty darn good for this one. And then again, you would say save, and you would want to change it to have an optimized name in its actual file name. So Fiery Erase JPEG is the original. So I would maybe call this OPT, like the optimized version, or web, whatever you want to do to help you remember. All right, let's just look at this real quickly. I'm going to close this down, both of them. And I'm going to open the Fiery Erase, the original one. And under File, Export, rather than going through the legacy, we would choose Export As. And in this dialog box, eventually, all right, this, now that it finally popped up, File Export As is the newer version, not the legacy that I've been showing you. And this one is going to kind of remind you of Illustrator if you've done work there. So we also have the preview and the 2-up versions here as well. So here is our, they're the same, the preview and the or the original and the preview, but here's where we can select our different modes. So we have the PNG, the JPEG, the GIF, and then the scalable vector graphic that I was talking about earlier. So if it's line art, a scalable vector graphic could be a good choice. The quality, JPEG, we're going to talk about it in terms of percentages. So 100% is super high, obviously, it's full. And 80% JPEG, notice how it's getting smaller down here. We're now down to like half the size, 172. I guess it went all the way down to 60. But again, we're also getting really, gotta zoom in here so we can see the difference. We are getting some pixelization here. But you know what? Maybe that's not so bad. Maybe that's perfectly fine for web use. So here's where you do your different setting options. And then you also have the option over here to do the different sizes. So at 1x is original size, 100%, but you could make something smaller or larger. And the suffix that you can put on it is the word that it would be appended to it. So if this is what we wanted was a JPEG at 35% and we hit export, we're going to get a much smaller version. And I could call this maybe Fire Erase Optimized 35. And then my brain, I know this is the 35% optimization of that file. I didn't change any of the canvas size over here or the image size, the scaling of it, but you could do that as well. So this dialog is what you are going to need for your final project, the movie poster, because one of the things that you have to submit is an optimized, I believe it's 8.5 by 5.5 JPEG. So something that we could use on a web page of your movie poster. So not only is it a different physical size, it also needs to be optimized down, you know, to maybe a JPEG at 80% or 90% quality, whatever it is, just something that makes it smaller and better for web use, besides the physical dimensions of being smaller. All right, that is it for optimizing images.